Hello and welcome back to lesson 10-3. Today we're going to be looking at the technological and economic changes of the 1990s and early 2000s, a period that saw some significant shifts in both technology and the economy of the United States. In the late 1990s, technology changed the life of all Americans. The biggest change here was the internet. The internet created a way for people and businesses to conduct e-commerce and to create all these business opportunities to go online instead of to stores. Online businesses and services have increased rapidly in popularity, with online businesses such as Amazon.com now outproducing brick and mortar stores throughout America. Computers were the big cause of this. By the end of the 20th century, computers were in most homes, in all schools, and the internet had become an essential tool for communication and information. Everybody, everywhere, had computers. And shortly after the internet was invented, cell phones come around to revolutionize communication, beginning with these clunky satellite phones, but then evolving into cellular phones that would operate off of digital towers and then run through computer networks themselves. Today, we have advanced from computers that occupied entire rooms and had the calculating power of a calculator to advanced computers that fit into the palm of your hand. It's really amazing the leaps in technology that have happened in just the last 40 years. Computers and the internet then led to an information revolution. How we acquire information and what we do with that information has totally changed over the last 40 years. These new technologies radically changed life for the average American, from how we spend our free time, from how we work. And again, this is accelerating in our society even today, but the real peak of these changes occurred in the early 2000s. America is also shifting our economic practices, the work that we do. America became a world powerhouse because of manufacturing. Think back to after the Civil War, in those years where America was focused on industry, the Andrew Carnegie and John Rockefeller days, the expansion of business and railroads. It's what made America a world economic power. But by the 1990s, most Americans no longer worked on building things. That's not what we did. Instead, we provided services. Most Americans shifted from making cars to running law firms, serving hamburgers, teaching in schools. Our economy had changed to a service economy. Now, this economic change does affect American workers. The shift created a lot of high-paying jobs for those who had the required skills. To get the good jobs in America, to enter the middle class in America today, you have to have a lot of schooling and you have to have some good skills. This decline in manufacturing led to the loss of many jobs. You couldn't go straight from middle school with a middle school education and at age 18 get a job building cars and enter the middle class. You can't do that anymore. It doesn't work. Instead, in order to make a living, you have to acquire higher levels of education, or at least it's very helpful to do so. That means now most Americans who want to get into a comfortable middle-class job, college education is a requirement. Having skills in education, however, does not mean that your job is safe. What the internet has done is it's made it more and more easy to communicate throughout the world and to increase competition throughout the world. We are now competing with people in every nation throughout the world. Any nation that can get onto the internet can compete directly with American businesses. And businesses cut employees to reduce their costs to stay competitive in this world. An example might be an X-ray, somebody who reads X-rays and interprets X-rays. Well, if you go to a hospital and you can have your X-ray taken, they can now take that image, put it in an email, send it to a doctor who lives in India, who works for 1/3 of the cost of a doctor in the United States, have them evaluate that X-ray image, submit a diagnosis, what it is they see, and email it back to the technician here in the United States. Dramatically reduces costs for the business, but makes it more difficult to have that job in the United States. This is a global economy. Increased trade throughout the world has had helpful advantages and hurtful ones. Companies that produce high-tech computers and equipment like that can remain competitive globally, but lower-cost items are largely now built in foreign countries. Even some of the fancy stuff, your iPhones, if you have one, those are built in China and constructed in China and shipped over to the United States. They're not built here. So it's providing jobs for Chinese, not for Americans. But because it's built in China, we can have it at a much lower cost. There are helpful elements and hurtful ones. In 1994, the United States joined NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Association. And we did this to take advantage of global trade. NAFTA has succeeded in decreasing the cost of a lot of goods. We trade freely with Mexico and Canada, so we get goods from those countries at lower costs. And if a car can be made in Mexico at lower cost and then brought into the United States, the cost goes down for us. It's good for business and it's good for consumers. It's not good, however, for people who work in manufacturing. Those people are losing jobs as factories moved to Mexico. So this is kind of the cost of NAFTA. President Trump is currently not a very big fan of NAFTA and is working on renegotiating a lot of these trade deals or eliminating these trade deals. We'll have to see if this stays. Globalization. Globalization is the idea that we are now all around the world linked together. That countries no longer operate businesses that don't have to interact with the rest of the world. U.S. companies compete with the entire planet for customers. And in this system, an economic downturn in one country can have a greater impact on the entire world. If the American economy suffers, if Americans can no longer buy as many goods because we don't have as much money, the Chinese will suffer because it is the Chinese that are making the goods that Americans are buying. This globalized world means that we will all, to a greater extent, succeed together or fail together. Now, also through this 1990s, early 2000s, we saw a number of exciting scientific breakthroughs. Many of these are wonderful and they present lots of potential benefits to all of humanity. And others have created fear and anger about the effects of some of those change. But one area that we've seen some tremendous advancements is in medicine. Science has discovered treatments and cures for many illnesses and many injuries. We're working toward cures for cancer and making some tremendous strides in just the last few years. And also working toward treatments for AIDS. And life expectancies for patients with AIDS have shot forward from a couple of years to a couple of decades with proper medical treatment. Also, some exciting medical technology got kickstarted when Scottish scientists discovered how to clone mammals. They did this and they created a sheep out of another sheep, not in the regular reproduction way, but by making an exact copy of its genes and growing it out into an animal. This technology, this cloning technology, presents tremendous advantages in studying medicine. Potentially, we could regrow organs for people who have damaged or sickly organs. We could also help with the food supply by cloning food that is more resistant to disease or drought. Space travel, the next final frontier. The United States and other nations have been working tremendously hard in recent decades, collectively, instead of in competition, to explore the space around us. And in this effort, we have created the International Space Station, a place where scientists, astronauts from many different countries can go to study outer space itself or the effects of outer space and zero gravity on a number of things. And has been this great international collaborative project to advance humankind. So the future of humanity has a lot of bright spots. If only we can seize the moment and work collectively for the betterment of all humankind. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you next time. Farewell.